Hello and welcome to this session, A Planned Escape, Templating Your Escape Room. I'm Sam and I'll be talking you through how we plan our escape room at the University of Chester. So in quick things, I will go through what an escape room is. I'm sure in this conference we probably all know, but just to outline how I'll be looking at it, how we started our research, how we actually planned our research, and how I'm suggesting you might plan the escape room, and then how we can actually template it and actually take it further so it goes fast, quick, and efficiently, and you can make them en masse. So, what is an escape room? Well, it contains several smaller studies related to the field of study. It can be either straightforward or it can be complicated. But it is this series of smaller tasks, with each task taking you closer to an end goal. Tasks will either give you a key, a code, a password, or the like for a follow-on task, or contribute onto the final goal. When we are teaching our students, we introduce them to the concept of escape room. A lot will already know this as an idea, but we want to introduce it first, so we'll often have a slide up actually saying what we're going to do and a little bit of why we're going to do it, though we sometimes tone down some of the bits. As we go in later, you'll be able to see why. So, to start off with, first and foremost, I've got a shout out to Shannon and Luke from Escapism Chester. We started our research actually visiting a local escape room, one I'd been to in the past, but they actually took us behind the scenes and showed us actually how they construct and make their escape rooms. And I think this is the one that we often miss out when we're looking at academia. We often listen to each other, but it's actually quite nice actually seeing people do it on the ground and seeing how they construct it and what goes well and what doesn't. I've, of course, also done the Escape Rooms in Education Showcase, and I am somewhat of a professional geek, having, done many escape rooms, got caught on the gamified learning and gamification in learning bug, and having played Dungeons and Dragons an awful lot throughout my life. I have these concepts ready, and so please ask me at the end if there is anything I say that is unclear on this. So to start off with, planning. What do we want to teach them and what can we do? So when we've been constructing our escape rooms, we have, anytime someone comes up with a good idea, we put it into our possible activities sheet. And this, we'll come to this later, but you will either get academics who are thoroughly enthused and know what they want to do and will basically be just really asking for help constructing, making sure things run smoothly. But there are quite a few people who come and they know they want to do some active learning. They know they want to get this gamified learning and either put the competition in or put the action in, but they don't really know what they want to do or what they can do that is actually educational, that actually has links to their course. So basically, I've put down a list of possible activities. Anytime we get a lecturer who suggests something good, anytime I have a eureka moment, it goes into the possible activities, and that just gives us a list of pre-done things that we can use as a step. So whether it is you constructing it yourself or it is you are supporting an academic, have a think of what you actually want to teach them, and then you can construct the ideas first. The ideas are the hard bit, and they're the ones that often require a bit of mulling around. And not only that, but they will also shape actually how you construct your escape room, perhaps a little bit more than actually doing it with on how many students you have or the like. So the two ways of doing these things are doing it either online or in person physically. The advantage of online is it is very cheap, and you can do it on Moodle, you can do it on Blackboard, you can do it through OneNote, or you can construct something via the web. And it is easy to size up these en masse, because as soon as you're doing it online, whether you're doing it via permissions on your VLE or whether you're doing it via a path they have to go online, this can be passed out to one person and passed out to multiple people. So this is the first thing you need to consider, is like how many people you're actually getting involved with. The downside of online is you cannot balance it in the same way. While you can be in the Teams call, in the online room, as it were, they have a tendency to be dominated by one person within a group. And again, if you're doing things on the VLE, often they are actually only one person does the action. So it becomes a main character and supporting characters. In contrast, we've got our physical ones, which usually gives us a greater variety of actions, and it's much more involving because they're in person. It can also be more embarrassing, so you have to be careful with students with anxiety. They can be held back on these, but it requires both staff and physical props, so it can be can consume an awful lot of resources. However, you can always remember you can mix these, and that's what we've done most at Chester, is having a mixed approach, having things either on our VLE or on the web, with the idea that they can be engaged with at their own time, and things to do in person. And we've got a really good result of this, particularly, and one that surprised me as we were actually running it, and I was not actually expecting it to go like this, is that we actually had people who were we had a split, so that students who were more shy, more anxious, more quiet, they tended to do the online section, while the others tended to do the physical section. But because I'd structured it so it went online, physical-ish. Sometimes it was double online, sometimes it was double physical, but they would quickly interlock with each other. This meant that they actually had to communicate with each other. And for most of these things, so I've ran this with medicine for people who've been doing interviews, but I've also ran it for first years and potential students coming in. And all these people, whether they are people going out into the real world or whether they're people coming into the not so real world of academia, they are wanting to learn these communication skills, and it is great for both the extroverted dynamic people and the introverted computer people. They all can get to interact with this, particularly if you lock in the clues. So here we have an example. This is one of the ones that we've done. So using H5P, we created this crossword with the idea that students had to research what the subject matter that was on. This was on Britpop and the cultural and sociological phenomenon that it was the 90s, and how this invaded politics, history and sociology of the time. And so basically getting students who might not have even heard of any of these concepts just to do a bit of research. So just to use very basic research skills, Googling ideas. And again, we had it so that this was on the board so that everyone could see it and that people could then engage with it. So we got a good bit of interaction with the students. And this is the example of perfect sorts of electronic things. And with these, with H5P, you can basically do it so that as soon as you have completed something, it then gives you an answer. If they get it incorrect, it tells them to try again. And if they get it correct, it then gives them either a clue. So this can be a process clue. So this can be an action that they need to do, an activity they need to do, or it can be a direct answer that unlocks something else. And if you're doing a purely online quiz, you can then do that with a password or with a quiz where they've got to enter something. But if you're doing that physically, that can be padlocks, that can be locks of something, to try and add a bit of that physical interaction, the engagement like that. And here we go. This is one we've done with the medicine escape room. And as you can see, they have an interview room that is completely unlocked. That is where they first go through and get their first clue. They interact with that, and then that allows them to, once they've done the interview room, the forgotten test unlocks. And each one only unlocks after they've done the one previously. And some of these needed physical interactions as well. They were told within the quiz whether they needed a physical interaction or not. And some were just online in the same way. these can be. We actually had these, so they were hidden. So they were not only were they not available to people who hadn't done the action, but they were actually not there, which allowed you to have the similar equivalent of a physical room of going, oh, we must check back to that tile, must see what's going on there. One, whilst you're planning, that is important is to think how many students you want and whether you want all your students to do the same activity at the same time. If you are trying to either assess this or trying to make sure that every student has some core skills, you want a more linear A, B, C type scenario. Something that actually gets people to go through the process of things, which allows them to all, at least, even if they haven't joined in with an activity, at least seen an activity in process. However, often more fun, whether it's more academic, is actually having branching scenarios, and this is the pathways that I was chatting with Shannon when we were talking. When the people who run the escape rooms officially, they say, "Oh yeah, trying to get something. There's always something to do in the room, and if something is being monopolised, there's always something else to do." And I found this really, really useful when you've got students who one person is quite domineering. The others can do the other activities whilst they're doing another one. We did also find, though, that the branching scenarios can cause a bit of anxiety. So if you're worried about students' anxiety levels, just be ready to manage them, because if they're doing one path and they need a clue from another path, make sure it's accessible to them. Make sure they're all communicating with each other, and make sure it's actually working together. But this allows you to have a more active room and more diverse room. I've done this with nursing, where various different departments of nursing all had different activities, and then some of their clues all merged together at the end. So they all then had to, having worked in their solo areas, whether it was on mental health, whether it was on early years, whether it was on adult field nursing, they then all had to communicate with each other afterwards. Now, here we go. This is showing you how one of the physical locks we've worked went. There are different types of locks. We've got key locks. Key locks we've done for activities where we want the students to actually do something. So they've been ones where it's not been so much trying to find a piece of information, but trying to do an activity to show them either doing something to do with their course itself, or to try and break down barriers, to try and create a more social learning thing. Like my activity, if you looked back on my slides, my silly activity. So we had people pretending they were Roman soldiers in front of the class, really just to break down class barriers and to make them communicate with each other. Those are great because if you've got a staff member on hand, they can pass a physical key to people. Not only that, but you can also have different coded locks. You can have coloured key locks, and this allows people to interact with documents and allow them to get involved with the actual looking through for what letters are coloured, and allows them to do more, forces them to do more reading, get involved with the documents. You can have codes, particularly good when people are finding dates, particularly good when people are finding references. Number codes, or you can do word codes like the one we've got here, which word codes are great. They actually tie back to the material. You've got to be careful because the padlocks won't do all the words. I've got a list. I did an Excel list, got all the letters, and just saw what combinations we could do for the different words to try and get them so they were top. So you have got what you want to do, you've got how you want to do it. So now we've got to actually get templating it and running it. So the first thing to think about is how you're going to reset it. Now, if it's an online one, this is usually nice and easy. Usually you can just turn restrictions off and it's done. But you might want to do, if you're doing a physical one, you need to reset things individually. This can take quite a bit of time. The first few times you'll do it, it will take a lot more time than you expect, and then the more you do it, the slicker you get. So again, think how many times you're running this and how long this is going to go on for. activity we found, one way we found to speed it up, and this is thank you to the people I've stolen it from the rooms professionally. Sticking little dots on everything. So if you got little green, blue, red dots on things, so you can match the green dot on the lock to the green dotted box, and you can then put them all together. So you can't see it on there, but that box would match on, and that box both have the lock with a match on, and that box both have a green dot underneath them to remind me when I'm putting them together that the green latch goes onto the green box. All quick ways of resetting the room. So, you've got what you want to do, what you're going to do. Now, as learning technologists, we have to create this en masse. I'm not just doing it for one person, I need to be able to quickly recreate it. So, the initial one is to talk out with the lecturer what they want, find out what they want, and organise whether it is a straightforward scenario or a branching scenario, and what activities are wanted. We then create a table, and I shall show you a table momentarily, which will allow you to see the various steps in the escape room, and allow you to see what the input is. So the input, what's going into it, the process, what you want to do, and again, this should be tied to learning in any area, what output they're going to get from it, and a clue to prompt the students, because everyone will get stuck somewhere, and it'll be the place you don't expect them to get stuck. So that table is for learning technologists. It's background activity. It's a background thing, just so you can see where it's going, and it's very simple, very dry, bare bones. We then use that to create a checklist, and that is actually what we use to run the session and to make sure that everything's going well. And this can just be given to the lecturer, and you can go with it. And then always check the checklist. Actually run through. So if you're running it yourself, find somebody who does not know the process and run it through. If you're running it through with a lecturer, get them to actually do it, and you can actually see where the problems are, what clues might be needed. So here we go. This is the bare bones behind the scenes template. So here we go, different paths. Each of those 4 paths go into one central path. So that is a central path starting it, central path ending it, opening up all these various activities with some physical activities and some online activities, and just showing me where this process is going. When you're then taking it to a lecturer, you want something like this picture here. You can see that I created a checklist. We had 3 lecturers for running these at the same time. So I passed each lecturer one of the checklists, and they all put their own notes in, and you can see they've got different ones, a different little highlight to it to remind them on them. Things that you might encounter. The 2 sorts of problems I've had with staff were the reticent staff, those who didn't know what they did. And for those, showed them the previous activities, and the over-enthusiastic staff. The staff who just wanted to go wild and had loved escape rooms, loved the activity, and so we had to try and calm them down and try and just remind them this is a learning activity. For those of you who are drama people, or those of you who are gaming people, you need to you or the lecturer needs to DM or direct the room. Encourage the students. Don't let them... When in an escape room, you often want dry areas where people are struggling. In an educational setting, this isn't any good. So try and make sure to direct the room. Track the progress using your checklist, and remember, anything can be an activity. One of the best things I learned from going to escapism was finding out that you can drill a hole in practically anything, and once you drill a hole into it, it can then be an activity. We did that with our folders, and we got the great medical files for our medical documentary. Thank you very much for listening to this. Chat to you soon.